I got these butterflies living in my insides. These butterflies and never go away. I try to fight them, but they always come back in time. These butterflies are killing me today. I don't wish you would be missing, you would be gone, no second guessing. I have a dream that I can dream without you interrupting me and causing me to use up all my sleep. And I don't care for you, trying to ignore you. Every time you're acting up, you got me hating you. You're tugging on my strings, changing all my plans. Never got a second chance, 'cause I got these butterflies living in my insides. These butterflies and never go away. I try to fight them, but they always come back in time. These butterflies are killing me today. Tratta di lubida, pero tossina mi vira ti tra. L'omino pidi da sempre, ni outro di maschera, ni outro di libra mi passo. Isami na onda, non mi meste vira, come lubida. Tanto ne costa da ina, te corda e também sta fumadeira, mi tassi a uera. A uomi takina, no, oh, ma viceno, mio takina, no. Living in my insides. These butterflies and never go away. I try to fight them, but they always come back in time. These butterflies are killing me today. Before I introduce myself, I want to do something. I want to do an experiment with you guys right now. I want everyone right now to raise your hand. Raise your hand. Raise your hand. Yep. If you're here right now in this present moment, I want you to feel like you're in this present moment. Because a lot of times we forget to be in the moment. We forget to live in the moment. So I just want you guys to realize that we're here right now. And we're here to talk. We're here to share experiences. We're here to have fun. And we're here to live. So just shake your hand like this. Just realize that you're living here right now. Alright, cool. Put your hand down. My name is Kev. I'm an artist from Curacao. I'm a singer, songwriter, producer, mix engineer. I do it all actually. And it's a real honor to be here with you guys. It's a real honor that I was invited. I'm really happy to be here with you guys. I'm gonna sing my next song. It's gonna be in Pavimento. Who understands Pavimento? Anyone understands? 2 people, 3 people? Alright. But I'm gonna need you guys' help, so I'm gonna explain what it is kind of, and then we're gonna sing it. The song is called Sibostimami. It says, if you love me, everything's gonna be okay. I know my life is gonna be okay if you love me. So it's a love song. I mean, basic. Alright, let me see. Oh no, 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 no. Oh no, no, no. Oh Okay, what you guys need to do is this. Who can sing? Can people sing? If you can't sing, don't worry about it. We're just gonna make it a good time. All right, we're just gonna do this. See what's the mommy. One more time. See what's the mommy. That's the only thing. I need to hear more people. Come on, let's go. See what's the mommy. There we go. All right, one more time. Last time. See what's the mommy. All right, I'll give you the cue when you guys can do it. Okay. Let's go. Okay, check. Tanto tempo nós só passamos, se nunca começaram. Tanto cosco nossa passa tem. Come por olvidar, te sem cubo na me señalo. Pa mi por na bono, a mi cubo sono sa sigriwa vacila, vacila. Aqui na andoni wari pesco manhã ativa. Pa mi sa onde me cancela que curta. Começa foi trempan que da vai perder madruga. Duvida cutalada e vecina me reclama. Hey guys, se você mami, se você mami, mami pirta-me. Se você mami, não me move mundo, vamos Panipo, se você mami, poder me duvidar do classe de dó. Se você mami, I will miss me caribo. Okay, check. Dia mami rabantoe, dia vira passa me da pedi outra. Os malha captiva me mabo, outra vista me bota tiki louca. Mi quera tu me chance, pero mi força no aduna, desmawa mi chance, vai. Ok. Fedi imita salo, minha dia cuta, amita pone puta smile. Se a veta é dia pa mi drenta show. Não me move mundo pa mi hacer bom. Pedi solo busco maneira vibe. Papi com a luna pa ver assim fim. Evitar tu estrepa pa mi goza com nós. Miedo suro celo, mi pari vapo. Pare chance perfeito pa mi assim mi co. Passo cubo mita mio. Se você mami, mami pirata mio. Se você mami, lo mi move mundo pantano. Panibo, se você mami, poder me lutar tu classe de dolor. Se você mami, a we mesmita di po. Paparandorando, dorando, si você mami, a we mesmita di po. Wait for it. I learned this yesterday. Wait 2 seconds. There we go. Alright guys, this was my presentation. I really hope you enjoyed it. Let's always remember to love, let's always remember to live in the moment, and let's always remember to treat each other like you would want to be treated. Alright, love you guys, have a good night.
Well, good evening everybody. So good to have all of you here in the room, but also everybody at home watching. My name is Alfrida Martis. People also know me as Alfie. And tonight I'll kick off our event. And I have the honor, before I introduce our keynote speaker, to guide you a little bit through like the historic elements of why we are here today and what made it possible for the CDO team, the Chief Diversity Officer team at the UvA, to actually develop this toolkit. Okay, so this is an overview of tonight. After Mitchell's keynote speaker, we'll have a roundtable conversation and then a Q&A. And the lovely Tirsa Witt will close us off with spoken word. And I really want to thank Kev for opening the event so beautifully. And yeah, it was an honor listening to you. So thank you so much. Okay, so behind me, you will see a bunch of pictures of a lot of things that have happened at the UvA, from student protests or, yeah, the Maagdenhuis nearby that was squatted, and banners that students hang up. And I want you guys to just, all of you actually, to just take a look at all of these pictures and think about what must have happened in all these rooms and in all these buildings, and what these students and employees, staff of the UvA talked about, or what they possibly experienced, and also the traumatic elements of people maybe working in the Maagdenhuis or people walking nearby here in front of Spui 25. And yeah, so just have a look at all these pictures, all these beautiful faces. The UvA actually has a really long history of EDI work, equity, diversity, and inclusivity. That's me. That's also me with Geert and Gloria. This is the CDO team. And Graaf. Here is also the CDO team, and with our collaboration with the University of Birmingham. This is Professor Kimberly Crenshaw, a lecturer at the REC on intersectionality. This is also the CDO team, some old colleagues as well. Shout out to Fatima. This is the Nota Diversiteit, a screenshot of the UvA's website. This is the Ministry of OCW with their action plan on diversity in higher education in the Netherlands. This is the Amsterdamse Accord that the UvA also signed alongside other educational institutes. This is Mitchell, our keynote speaker on the Dam Square. The BLM protest in Amsterdam. Knowledge is always situated. It's really important to realize the context of everything that we do. This is Mayor Halsema, formal apology for slavery. This is the Gouden Koets expedition, also nearby here in the Amsterdam Museum, and the Kitty Kotti dialogue table happening in front of the Gouden Koets. And yeah, this is me. And a brief overview of all the historic elements surrounding yeah, the Decolonization Toolkit and why the CDO team is doing this. Without further ado, I would like to welcome Mitchell to the stage. Mitchell is the co-founder of New Urban Collective and also the Black Archives. They really center Afro-Dutch histories, particularly for Surinamese and other Black people in the Netherlands. And New Urban Collective was a network for students and young professionals from diverse backgrounds. And with the Black Archives, they really they opened a cultural center based on the unique collection of books, documents and artifacts documenting the histories of Afro-Dutch people. And yeah, they organize a lot of public programs on urgent social issues, and they do this by working with artists, academics, different communities and other organizations to make yeah, these histories available again. So without further ado, please welcome Mitchell Esaias.
Well, thanks for the wonderful introduction, Avi. It's a pleasure to be here, and it's very nice to see everybody in real life, and also greetings to the people watching online. Thank you to Kev for the amazing musical introduction. Although I didn't understand it fully, papiamento, I could feel it. Well, I have the privilege and honor to share some thoughts with you tonight. I was asked to share some information, give a speech about the importance of the toolkit, which will be launched softly tonight. It's a soft launch, I have to emphasize it, right? It's not a fully launch, it's a soft launch. And looking at the pictures that you shared, I really almost became a little bit nostalgic because I have a history with the UvA as well. I see a few familiar faces, also some new ones. So what I want to do, I have always way too many slides. Thus you see how depending on what the vibe is like, I'll share some information. And what I want to do is introduce myself a little bit further and the organization I'm representing, New Urban Collective and the Black Archives, because it's directly tied to the history that Alfie just shared and that we were going to discuss today. The brief history of the movement for decolonizing the university here at the UvA and broader in Amsterdam and the Netherlands. And lastly, I want to share a few thoughts about this toolkit. So, Alfie briefly said it, but I can show you. I was born and bred here in Amsterdam. My parents are from Suriname, and I come from quite a large family. It's the first time I'm actually giving a lecture because I always have to big up my grandmother. Unfortunately, she passed away 2 weeks ago, but she left behind an amazing legacy. A legacy of 15 children. Grandpa had 16, one extra, but she's also included. The reason I'm telling this is because I come from a family with more than 50 grandchildren. And I was the first from that branch to go to the university. That meant that I was a first-generation student. I didn't study at the UvA, but at the VU. And it meant that I didn't have parents, uncles, aunties who could, help, support, give some practical advice in how to navigate such an institution. Besides that, what I noticed was that besides being a first generation, I was also often the only black student in class. I started with business administration, by the way, ended up with anthropology, ended both, finished both. But in both studies, I experienced what a lot of students of color, students from marginalized backgrounds experience. And that you not always feel as welcome as you should feel. And that has an impact on your performance, on the way that you experience studying at a university. Another thing I noticed was that, and I noticed that already at secondary school, and some of you may recognize it, was that we did not learn much about certain parts of history. We had to learn a lot about the Enlightenment, certain aspects of the Second World War, but we didn't learn much to anything about colonial history, about the history of slavery. And I did learn about it via my mother, via my family, traveling to Suriname. So at the young age, I already noticed that there's a narrative, a story that I learned from the school books, but there's another narrative that you can learn outside from school and these educational institutions. So being at the university, being one of the few black people of color, together with a few fellow students, the idea arose to set up a students' association. That ended up being the New Urban Collective. We started 10 years ago in 2011. I kind of feel old telling this story. But one of the reasons why we started was this lack of identification we had with both the student population, the staff, and the curricula. So we started organizing all kinds of events, lectures, debates, workshops, a mentoring program in which students started mentoring primary school youth in Amsterdam Southeast, because we saw that the problem that we were facing, this lack of diversity, didn't start at the university, but it starts much earlier at primary school when young children are tracked into lower levels of secondary education, often when they come from a lower socioeconomic and migrant background. We saw that the program called Ongekende Talenten, in which we tried to connect students and graduates with businesses so they could find jobs and internships. Again, because we saw that students with a migrant background often had more challenges to find the internship and finish their studies. So in all kinds of fields, we saw in our direct environment how students of color, black students, students from marginalized communities were facing challenges in society, in their environment, at the university and outside of it. And our way of dealing with it is and was by trying to find practical solutions, by bringing community together to support each other so one could realize one's ambitions. A few years later, we were approached by a few guys, Chemo and Miguel Habelan. You see them on the picture standing right next to me. They were the sons of Waldo Habelan, which you can see on this picture. And he was a sociologist from Suriname who used to work at the University of Amsterdam in the 1980s and 90s. And he specialized in the plantation economy after the abolishment of slavery in Suriname and the Dutch Caribbean. Another thing he looked at was at how history is being presented, constructed, and written. And one of the things that he wrote in, for example, this book, Op zoek naar de stilte, was that history is often being presented as if there's one objective, neutral, national history. The history we learn in our books, which we see in Mysia. However, he argued, and a lot of other scholars argue that as well, is that history can also be seen as a reconstruction of the past, meaning that choices are made in which certain narratives are developed, and within that process, choices are made about which stories we tell, which we don't, which people we include in textbooks, and which we don't, which people are seen as heroes, which are seen as criminals. And in this process, you often see that certain histories are marginalized or completely excluded from dominant historical narratives. This goes for the histories of slavery and colonialism. When we look at the Dutch context, in our Mysia, in educational institutions, but it also goes for other marginalized groups. When we look at women's history, the history of LGBTQ+ people, also don't get much attention. So he was very critical about this, did research, wrote about it, but unfortunately passed away. And in 2009, when he passed away, unfortunately, he left behind quite a large collection of books. His sons inherited this collection and had it at home for quite a long time. So after a while, we were like, hey, let's do something with this collection. We know our father would have wanted more. So they approached us, and we ended up using a little space in Amsterdam North to make this collection of books available. Why? Because a lot of this literature, which was about the topics that he did research on, was literally not available, not findable via the public library, not even via the university library. So critical perspectives about these histories, critical views on histories of colonialism, but also its legacy, were very hard to find. So we decided to do it ourselves. We started in this little room in Amsterdam North, but as most students know, it's quite hard to find a home, a place to stay, let alone a space for a bunch of books. So unfortunately, after a few months, we had to leave the space because of gentrification, #WoonProtest, back then already. So we were very happy when we found a different space at the place where we're located now, which is Vereniging Ons Suriname, Amsterdam East. It's the oldest association of Surinamese people in the Netherlands, and this is what the space looked like when we ended up there. As you can see, it was quite messy, you could say. We had no clue what was in those boxes. But we made a deal with them and said, we can help you clean up if we can put our books there. So cleaning up, we found out that there was a fascinating hidden history in those boxes. I'm just going to share a few examples because I don't have too much time. Fascinating ebony magazines from the 1960s with Martin Luther King on the cover, Time magazine with James Baldwin, a signed booklet of Langston Hughes, for those who don't know, is a well-known poet from the Harlem Renaissance. Some people call him the Beyonce of poesy from the 1930s, because he was that well-known. But also things from closer to home. Yeah. Take, for example, this document saying apartheid, but was not about South Africa. It was about right here, Amsterdam, Rotterdam, the Netherlands, about the period in the 1970s when a lot of people came here from Suriname, the Dutch Caribbean. Earlier, people were recruited from Turkey and Morocco. And the dominant narrative that we hear is that Netherlands is the country of openness, tolerance, and equality. However, these documents showed that there was another side to the story, and that people were literally banned from certain neighborhoods in Amsterdam, in Rotterdam, as part of the spreading policy. We found documents about police violence against Surinamese and Caribbean and other people of color in the 1970s. Alfie just showed a picture of the Black Lives Matter protests. I was one of the co-organizers on Dam Square. And one of the reactions we read a lot in media was that, you know, it's a thing coming from the United States. It's overgewaaid vanuit de VS. However, these documents show that there's a different historical narrative, a different historical understanding of these kinds of issues. However, it's difficult to have these conversations when we don't know about it, when the sources are not there, when they are not taught in school, when they are not part of our curriculum. Fortunately, there were also some positive things we found, like commemorations of Kitty Kotti, the abolishment of slavery, starting in the 1950s, a beautiful march in the 1960s as well, around Kitty Kotti. So what we tried to do was do what we think the university should do, but doesn't. So one of the things one can do is indeed, and I think it is necessary and imperative that we continue to have these dialogues, discussions, protests, policy changes within the institution. But when we look at decoloniality, one of the concepts within the thought of decoloniality is delinking, meaning that you delink from these dominant institutions and look at things from a different epistemic perspective. And you could say that the Black Archives is a reflection of this decolonial theory, the idea of delinking. And instead of trying to change it from within, we showed that there is an alternative. There are alternative sources, histories, books, literature, which are not included in a lot of curricula. And what we try to do is try to make it available for a broader audience as well. Because we know that not everybody has the time, the capacity to read all of these books and documents. So we work a lot with artists, visual artists, musical artists to make these histories and narratives accessible and visible. That's why I appreciate all the artists amongst us tonight. And whilst we were developing the Black Archives, and you see, I graduated in 2013, 2014, and found my first job at the UvA as a student advisor at the Department of Anthropology. I had a lovely time. But at the same time, in this period, I and you see, continue to be involved with engaging with students, because almost on a weekly basis I came in touch with students who were confronted with situations where they were being excluded, forms of microaggressions, sometimes blatant racism or sexism. So one of the campaigns we organized in 2015 was the I2M UvA and FU campaign, inspired by the I2M Harvard campaign, and students in the United States who organized the campaigns to show what kinds of comments they were confronted with. We use the term microaggressions now, well-intentioned comments which may have a racial or sexist undertone, like met de hoofden kom je nooit aan de top. Oh, sorry, I thought you were Moroccan, as if that is an insult. He organized a campaign called Decolonizing the University, and then in 2015, the movement, the occupation of the Maagdenhuis. Anybody who was present at one of the events or the Maagdenhuis itself? No? Yeah, it's a new generation now. So if you take you back, I'll try to take you back a little bit in history, and I don't have much time, so I'll keep it short. But it started with a demand, a movement of students and staff who were tired of the neoliberalization of the university. So they demanded direct democracy. They demanded that their voices would be heard more. And within the movement of the Maagdenhuis occupation, which started in February 2015, a new movement arose among mostly students of color, some staff of color, who organized themselves as the University of Color. And they raised a banner, which we saw earlier in your PowerPoint, saying, "No democratization without decolonization." Here it is. I'm going to skip a few slides because of time. We saw the lovely Afi already here. But what they / we demanded, because we cooperated with them a lot, was that if this movement was to contribute to a process of democratization, it would be that it was imperative that ideas of decolonization should be included as well. So one of the things that they and we did was that we set up a diversity and decolonization pre-committee. We had long nights of discussions and negotiations with the court and the board of the university, and ended up with installing a diversity and decolonization committee, which Alfie showed as well, who got the mandate, the task to do research and formulate some recommendations to work towards a more inclusive, diverse, and decolonized university. And this was a beautiful moment in which it was presented. I will not present the whole report because it can still be found online, but there are a few important principles and ideas that I would like to briefly show and share, because people are already looking at me that I don't have that much time. Diversity of people, that the university should be a place free from discrimination or people feel that they belong. Diversity in knowledge, a challenge to broaden the academic tradition and mainstream canon, which are solely centered on Europe and the US. And the research was relatively, you could say, innovative for the context of Dutch universities, because it was based on principles and theoretical frameworks of intersectionality. The idea that, as you can read here, the perspective that allows us to see how various forms of discrimination cannot be seen as separate, but need to be understood in relation to each other. And the idea of decoloniality, how the dynamics of power differences, social exclusion, and discrimination are connected to the ongoing legacy of our colonial history. However, I will skip this because of time. As you can see, way too many slides. Normally, I give a few examples of how, throughout this whole colonial history, how deeply embedded racist thoughts were in European philosophies, social sciences, anthropology, and that legacy is still visible in present-day society, which can read in these books. I'm giving you homework, people. I'm giving you some homework. Let's look at it like that. However, something peculiar occurred. A few of the recommendations were picked up, and I have to commend all the people who did some serious labor as part of the CDL. However, what we noticed was that one of those fundamental principles, which were part of that student movement, and that idea, the vision, the theoretical basis of decolonization, seemed to have disappeared from the diversity policy, from the vision, which was led by Anna de Graaf, who was until recently the CDO. So there was some criticism from several students. And I have to be honest that it was one of the reasons that I quit my job at the UvA and focused on the University of Amsterdam. Because diversity and inclusion could be seen as buzzwords. They're very important ideas. And when we look at the instellingsplan and the policy proposals that have been formulated over the past years. However, and that is what we hope to discuss tonight with you all today, it's imperative to continue to have sometimes difficult conversations, to look critically at our curricula, at these institutions in the historical context from a decolonial point of view. And that's why it's so important, and that I'm happy that despite the fact that a lot of students and staff have graduated or left, there's still a group of critically thinking young people, members of staff, who continue to put this on the agenda. And we'll continue with a Q&A with a few very, very interesting people who have been part of developing the Decolonization Toolkit, which will have its soft launch tonight. And with you, I would like to have the conversation about why it's necessary, what's in the toolkit, how the people who are present here and looking online can use it to continue this long movement which had started years ago. So with that, I'd like to end my presentation and invite our panelists. One of them you already met, Alfie, member of the CDO team. She's been part of University of Color as well, so you could say that she's a veteran in the movement. Please welcome Alfie with a warm round of applause. The next person I would like to invite is Latisha Engel. She is one of the graphic designers who's been part of translating this toolkit in a practical and visually appealing tool, which hopefully many people will use in the near future. Applause for Natasha, so please. And last but not least, I see him sitting in front, Meneer de Vries, also artist, illustrator based in Utrecht. Very flexible. Who does not believe in the values of low art and high art, and has also been very important in the process of translating this theory into practice and into a visually attractive toolkit, which I think we can talk about more now. Yeah.
Thank you, Mitchell. Can you all please give Mitchell a warm applause for his amazing Okay. Yeah, so I will do a demonstration of our toolkit, the prototype actually. So this is the current website, the current prototype of the Decolonization Toolkit, which wouldn't have been possible without the creative vision and direction of Gior Moore, Nazrina Rojan, Latisha Engel, Meneer de Vries, and our very own CDO team members who worked on this co-creative project, but also many people who participated in our community lunches, who sent emails, advice, all the experts that gave feedback on our toolkit. So I'll just take you briefly through it before we go to our panel or roundtable conversation. This is our toolkit with this lovely image made by Meneer de Vries. And you can like hover over every section and it will take you to a particular chapter. So the toolkit has various, in Dutch they would call it instapsniveau. So various different levels of where you can start on your decolonization journey. And there are 4 chapters in total. And they all deal with a different aspect of decolonization. For example, I'll go back to our landing page, which is here. If you click on Start Your Journey. It takes you to a survey. And the survey has 4 options, and every option relates to one particular chapter. And our idea was really to make the toolkit, as Mitchell was also already saying, in a creative way. You can make such a topic that is heavy and oftentimes seen as too complex. You can make it accessible for a lot of people who want to learn more about what decolonization means. So, for example, let me see, this is a prototype, right? So I hope that it works. If I click on what is decolonization and what does it matter? See? Oh, it's working, amazing. I love this. It takes you to this chapter where you can read more about this specific question that we started with. And below in the bottom, you can also see different resources, because we try to really share best practices. So you can do your own homework, but also read and watch things that maybe are non-academic, like a Netflix show, or listen to some music, or, for example, like Dutch sources that can also teach you more about decolonization within a Dutch context. So I really wanted to highlight this particular chapter, but also our last one. I'll take you there. Let me see, this should also work. Yes, which is the Seeking Help and Support page. And we as CDO team find it really important to support people who are already on this journey and who have been doing incredible work at the UvA to help them find resources or point them to different projects that are going on, or networks within Amsterdam, or resources around like healing that they can go to and find support. And I personally really love this image, but I think it's best if we talk about it in our roundtable convo with Meneer and Tisha here, who can tell us more about the creative side and everything that went into developing the website.
Thank you, Avi. I'm going to switch this microphone. So, soft launch of a decolonization toolkit, and as you can see, the idea, or at least one of the ideas of the toolkit, is to make a complex and sometimes also sensitive topic, and definitely within this university more accessible and visible again, after it almost seemed to disappear. Alfie, can you first of all maybe again tell us why you chose this form of making this information available, this toolkit, and why did you choose to work with artists?
I would first like to say that it's like not me, that it's like really a bottom-up idea from people within the UVA community who really wanted to know more about decolonization and wanted it to be accessible, wanted it to be innovative, and something that they can just go to and always rely on. And like an informative, educative website really helps. And within our team, we had a lot of discussions and brainstorms of how to make this big document. I think it has over, I don't know, 40 pages, how to make that accessible. And we ended up with developers, with Studio Div, with Latisha, with Munir, with Gior, Nazarina, and our copywriter, Caleb, who really helped us think differently. Because in academia, I think sometimes we have tunnel vision and we forget that there are creative ways out there to make knowledge accessible. So.
I feel that. Munir, you have been one of the people who worked on the visualization of this toolkit. Mm-hmm. Can you tell or share with us why, why you found it important to be part of this process, but also what you did practically in making these visuals?
I don't know if you can hear me.
Yeah.
All right. I actually already connect a lot with these subjects. So for me also it was a very short deadline. Actually 1 week ago I didn't have anything. But I was just thinking about like how it connects to the subject. And I think because also in the team I felt like a very nice atmosphere and very nice communication, which gave me the space to express myself in the way that I really wanted. So that's why I'm pretty happy with the results, because I didn't really feel like I had something breathing in my back. So.
Mm-hmm. You said you already had something with the subject or the topic of decolonization. Can you elaborate a little bit on that? Why is it important to you?
Well, I've been thinking a lot about like how we are all connected in like community thinking. So, for example, if I can say, thank you for saying that you really like the head. It's supposed to be like Audre Lorde, but you probably won't recognize it. But it's like a lot of people that are forming together, becoming like a basis of a new thing to grow, maybe a new way of thinking. So this kind of, these are things that are important to me that I've been practicing on how I can visualize them. And I think, also like on the left side, like number 2, it's like people are standing on the shoulders of like a giant is popping out of the ground. So I think a lot of people know this saying, like standing on the shoulders of giants. So these are already like things that I have in my mind, and I think, I really liked putting it together. Like,
yeah, beautiful.
Thank you.
Latisha, you've also worked on this toolkit. Can you tell a little bit more about what your role has been and why it was important to you to be part of it and how you experienced it, maybe?
Yeah, so together with Gior, who's also here tonight, we wanted to kind of make a platform or create a platform that was very clear for everyone to see and navigate through, because it is a heavy and dense subject, as you said, so as clear as possible. And we also wanted to make it creative in a sense that Munir's elements came throughout the Decolonization Toolkit, as well as different elements, a very friendly font to read, they can go through, they can scroll, but also different elements that sometimes were a bit larger, so it's not just very straightforward like a PDF file, but something that you can interact with a little bit more. And we wanted to create a very subtle but professional color palette, something that also fit really well with UVA's themes colors as well. And yeah. And why? why I collaborated, because I also think it's important for me. I mean, I come from Curacao, and coming here, you get confronted with a lot of different things as well. And when I got this opportunity through Alfie, actually, I thought it was important for me to also collaborate with this. And with that, I got to collaborate with a lot of amazing artists of color as well. So that also expanded my personal knowledge, not only on the topic, but also with diverse artists and people within my community.
Thank you, thank you. I think I could ask loads of questions to all of you. However, we would like to open up the conversation to you all here in the audience. One of our team members should walk around with a microphone. Oh, this one. And if you would like to ask a question or maybe contribute something, there is space for it now. I would like to say that a question is a question and not a mini lecture. So keep it short and concise. And let's open it up. A lady in the back with the white jacket.
Kan ik het in het Engels stellen? Of in het
English is...
ja, ik had de vraag, hoe denken jullie dat het ooit gaat veranderen binnen de UvA? Want het gebeurt, zeg maar, microagressies, dat vindt ook plaats binnen de werkgroep. En er zijn ook heel veel docenten die het, zeg maar, onbewust doen. Dus hoe gaat dit veranderen, vraag ik me af.
Yeah. I'll try to translate and summarize, paraphrase it a little bit. So the question is, how can we really structurally change this problem within the university? The experiences with microaggressions already start within working groups, coming from both fellow students, but even teachers sometimes. So how can we really change this? Fundamental question. Who would like to share some thoughts?
Okay. Yeah, I mean, I hear you. I'm a UvA alumni myself, so I've been through a lot. But I also really believe in the power of radical and critical education. And I also know that institutes are usually not going to give that to you. So these are knowledges that exist outside of academia and sometimes trickle into academia. For example, when staff members themselves organize or think of creative ways to make such a topic available to a larger audience within the academic environment. And I think within the CDO team, we are very much aware of that. And this is how we try to answer that question, to provide teachers, lecturers, supervisors, PhDers with this type of knowledge that gives them skills, but also hopefully the literacy to not have these microaggressions or really blatant forms of racism and discrimination happen in class. So that's what I can say about it. And my colleague Janissa Jacobs and I, we also organize workshops and trainings. And we know that with the right education, cultural change can really happen. And hopefully on the long term also, real institutional change. Yeah.
Are there any teachers, members of staff from the UvA in our midst? Maybe we can... Okay. Good to have you here. Maybe is there someone who would like to share some thoughts on the question of, I hope I rightfully assume that you're a student. Anyone from the teacher, staff, about this question, how can we contribute to structural change so that in the future, hopefully students won't have to deal with too many of these problems and examples of microaggressions again?
or just feedback on
Or
the
feedback.
toolkit.
Also possible. I know it's a difficult question. See someone here.
Okay. Well, I think the toolkit is a great way to start because I think decolonization is, even for a lot of people, probably just a big scary word. And I think even with a quick glimpse at a website, I think the content on there makes it really easy accessible for a lot more people. So I'm also really curious to find out what are you planning to do after this soft launch to really make this an integral part of diversity and inclusion within the UvA?
So what we're going to do next, right? That is your question. Okay. Well, it's a prototype, like you already said, and a soft launch. So behind the scenes, we still have a lot of work to do. So we gotta fill up the website more. We have to look at the copy one more time to make sure that all the contents that we have on there, that they are right and that all the links are working. And besides that, we're gonna do just in Dutch punches op de i, so make things look a bit more better before the website goes, the toolkit goes fully live. It is accessible right now, but that's only because I'm logged in. So like last week, oh my God, my student assistant Sarina, but also my colleague Elise and also Jennifer, Janissa, we've been doing an immense job of filling up the website actually, because the creative team, they develop it, they build it, they code it, but you still need editors who like fill it up, the website up. So we've been doing that and we'll continue to do that. And yeah, it'll be live soon. The sooner the better. But I don't have an exact date yet.
Thank you. You made an interesting comment in the introduction of your question. The comment that to some, the word alone, decolonization, seems to be scary. And it's definitely something that I've noticed and seen whilst working here at the university as well, that the word already creates some defensive reactions to some. And that's why I think it's a very interesting approach to try to make it seem less scary. Through creativity, that's also what we try to do via the Black Archives, use art to make complex matters more accessible. So a question to both of the artists. How was it, can you tell a bit more about the process? Did you very consciously think about, okay, how can we reach out to those who may not be part of the people who are already, part of our team?
I think I also approached it how I personally, because of course I'm a person of color, but for me, I don't have all the information. So how I would like to read or access something like this. And the best way we kind of came up with is just to think of ideas together, see what most of us agreed with, and also see what was the most user-friendly. I think that was the most important thing for us to do, because just having a PDF in a very old-fashioned font, you don't really want to read something like that, but having different tools to navigate through, or having different links, things, shows you can watch, music you can listen to, it's more modern, it's more accessible. And in that way, I don't think not only I would enjoy going through it, but someone else as well. So when I'm creating, I would like to think from the perspective of the user. That's the most important thing for me.
Thanks. Would you like to add something?
Nice. Can you repeat the question?
would you like to add something about how you, about the process that you consciously think about, okay, how can we make this complex and maybe scary topic for some accessible to a broader
Well, I thought maybe nice to not. I draw some like very realistic things as well, like a sketch of like a statue who stepped off his feet and was reading like Wit Huiswerk or something, like really literally realistic situations, you know. And then I thought, like, if you create more of a like a surrealistic way, it might be a different way to interpret it with like more metaphoric approach, and that yeah, it's maybe more less in your face and more like, hey, what is this? Maybe look, oh, nice colors, and then you're already inside or something.
And you're trapped. And now you have to learn about decolonization. Yeah. No, I think it's a beautiful way of engaging with people who may otherwise shut down immediately when they just read the word or hear about the word. Yeah. I think we would be able to continue this discussion, this dialogue for hours and hours. We have been doing that already at the UvA. So I can consider this a next very important step in this long process of making this institution more inclusive for everybody. But I just got the sign that, unfortunately, we have to wrap it up. So, Alfie, is there one last thing you would like to share? Maybe, is there a date or a period which you can already share about when people will be able to use the tool?
Well, I would like to use this opportunity to really ask people in the audience, but also at home, to please give us feedback. We need feedback to make the toolkit better, more complete, but it's also a work in progress. It's not finished yet. It's a living document, and diversity literacy changes all the time. So please, if you have feedback, email us, diversity@uva.nl, and the CDO team and my coworkers will really try with the creative team to also make the toolkit better and get it up live for you as soon as possible. So please, feedback.
So, as soon as possible.
No. You can go to it, decolonizationtoolkit.nl, but you'll get a coming soon link, and you'll see the beautiful image that Munir made. So you'll see our landing page, but not all the info that I just showed you earlier. Yeah.
From when on can we get feedback? When can we see it?
Yeah, so it's not live yet, but based on the sneak peek that you've just had, maybe you have ideas or things that should be added or more that you want to know, you can just email us and yeah, we'll take it from there.
Mm-hmm. So it's kind of a collaborative process. So if you already know, okay, this cannot be missed on the website, it must be there. Diversity@uva.nl, and the team will pick it up and it will be online ASAP. That being said, I would like to thank all of the panelists, Latisha, Munir, had a long day, and Afi. Please give them a warm round of applause. And now I'd like to introduce the last act of today, the extraordinary spoken word artist, road marketer by day, and oral storyteller by night. Decolonizing, the floor is yours.
When you're suddenly hit by nostalgia that isn't yours, miss a language you never knew, a people you've never loved, a life you could, should, would have lived, if only. Hi, everyone. My name is Tirsa. I was not at the Maagdenhuis occupation in 2015. I enrolled in 2016, so I am a baby veteran. I would first like to, in my first piece, like to reflect on decolonization in the matter of Sankofa, going back from where we've come, which leads us into the present. as a continuation of the piece that I already started. I can't cry, even if I try. It's like overnight, my heart became a desert, and the only thing still flowing is thick, warm blood and feces filled with forgotten fruits, rotten truths, history. It hurts because it's gory, because it's glorified. Feocé, VIC, trembling fingers from the colonial remnants. Does remnants imply it's over? Because it's not like we don't still feel the flesh sizzling away. I think about the first night in the jungle, finally free to fight death. I think about the first night in the fortress, pressed bodies, sweet blood, 60 centimeters of feces on the floor. What a feast. I think about the ships and the bodies and the dead with no funeral to forget, no babies to tell their stories. When I say I think, I mean I remember. Because I do and I don't want to wait until I am born again on a new planet of amnesia with cotton-stuffed brains filled with sugar, nutmeg, and pepper. Eyes dried up, moist fingertips reaching for roots, whispering reflections, bloody dreams, silent dreams, whispering screams. Thank you. So I was a student at the UvA. I was actually a student at AUC, a honors campus of the UvA and the VU. And I graduated in 2020, cum laude. I finished my bachelor's, and I did not continue to do a master's or a PhD or stay at the university at all. And with this piece, I'd like to reflect a little bit about my experience at the university in a bit more of an abstract way. Here we go. To the black girl who didn't know she was a beast, housed in the belly of a giant, fixed by a matrix of organic, organometric tasting fruits, truths she held and clasped in vain. They sprained and left her etchings of vanity metrics. Now, plain talk. She was crushed, hushed, blushed. Not quite blushed, she was black, remember? Far from figuring out who she was, she knew she was seen. An activist on a pedestal, ruling the allies from her ivory tower, a cold shower, her throne room, the belly of a beast, who would feast as she fasted, demand while she's casted out from her peers, echoes of cheers, yas, queers, virtue signals, and white tears. But from her chamber of not-so-secret hate crime scenery, no one tasted her fear. The coppery aftertaste of spending a year on a student board with a board chair who thought Ku Klux Klan was a funny Wi-Fi name. All those nights coming together for mental health awareness. Nobody aware that she wasn't there. In the flesh, yes. For the press, yes. But she sat in a stadium with all the allies who had seen, sent her emails, whispered their support, but never thought to report. Abort missions. Executive indecision. To the black girl who knew she was a beast, who's been told she should get a degree, write her PhD, write for TV. I know what y'all want from me. I know what y'all want. Me. So I chose to be free. Thank you.
And with those beautiful poetic words, we close this, I think, interesting, inspiring evening. As I said, let's see this as one important step forward in a long history of steps towards a more inclusive institution. For the people at home, I wish you a very good night. And for the people here, there's still time for some drinks. We haven't been able to come together in a long time. So feel free to stay, engage. As Alfie said, you can send some feedback already via diversity@uva.nl, and it will be online ASAP. Thank you for coming, and I wish you all the best. Bye.